In the dim recesses of history, where tales of ancient civilizations are whispered through the corridors of time, there exists a mystery that has eluded the grasp of scholars and adventurers alike. Nestled in the heart of Egypt, beneath layers of sand and secrets, lies the enigmatic lost tomb of Cleopatra, a burial chamber untouched by the hands of modernity until now. This is not just a tale of archaeological exploration. It is a descent into the depths of mystery and suspense, where every step forward reveals a new layer of the macabre. Cleopatra VII, Thea Philopator, was born in Alexandria, Egypt, in the year 69 BCE, and she ultimately ascended to the position of pharaoh of ancient Egypt. She was a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, which was a Greek family that controlled Egypt after Alexander the Great's conquest of the country. The translation of Cleopatra's full name, Thea Philopator, is goddess beloved of her father. Cleopatra was the queen of ancient Egypt. Early in her childhood, Cleopatra was faced with political upheaval both within her own family and in Rome, which posed a danger to her safety. She pursued a sexual relationship with Julius Caesar, while also forming a political alliance with him so that she could keep her grip on power. The union culminated in the delivery of a child, who was given the name Caesarion. Cleopatra moved to Egypt soon after the murder of Caesar in the year 44 BCE. In the political conflicts that ensued after the death of Caesar, Cleopatra allied herself with Mark Antony, who had been one of Caesar's generals. Their partnership developed into a love one as well as a political one, and they went on to have 3 children together. Because of Cleopatra's relationship with Antony, Octavian, later known as Augustus, another of Caesar's generals who would go on to become the first Roman emperor, had a contentious relationship with Cleopatra. The defeat of Cleopatra and Antony at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE was the beginning of the end for both of them. Cleopatra and Antony both committed suicide rather than face the prospect of being captured and humiliated after their armies were destroyed by Octavian's navy. It is often thought that a bite from a poisonous snake, namely an asp, was what ultimately led to Cleopatra's demise in the year 30 BCE. The legacy of Cleopatra is complex and has evolved over time thanks to historical customs that frequently drew inspiration from Roman sources. She is recognized for her brilliance, political savvy, and ability to manage the turbulent political terrain of the historical period. Her legacy lives on in the minds of people today. In addition, her contacts with well-known Romans have played a role in maintaining her continuing attraction in both popular culture and historical debates. Her life and death have been the topic of many works of literature, art, and cinema, which has further cemented her position as one of the most famous individuals in ancient history. It's possible that the archaeologists' discovery of a rock-cut tunnel beneath the ancient Taposiris Magna temple in Egypt will lead them to Cleopatra's unmarked grave. Cleopatra was the final monarch of Ptolemaic Egypt from 51 to 30 BCE, and her reign spanned from 51 to 30 BCE. The Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities made the 4,265-foot tunnel's discovery public 1 week ago and referred to it as a geometric miracle. It is comparable to the Tunnel of Eupalinos, which is located on the island of Samos in Greece, and is regarded as one of the technical wonders of antiquity. The publication Ancient Origins first reported the discovery, which occurred during an excavation campaign under the direction of University of San Domingo archaeologist Kathleen Martinez. Cleopatra is most renowned for her death by suicide, which occurred shortly after her husband, the Roman commander Mark Antony, also committed suicide. It is thought that the two were laid to rest in the same grave. Cleopatra was the most powerful woman in history and the final pharaoh of ancient Egypt. She was also one of the most beautiful. Despite this, her final resting site has been shrouded in mystery over all of these years. However, as a result of the work of a well-known Latina archaeologist, we may be getting closer and closer to locating her tomb. Dr. Kathleen Martinez has dedicated it her life's work to discover the location of the tomb of Cleopatra, the mythical Queen of Egypt. Dr. Martinez was born in the Dominican Republic, and she first showed an interest in archaeology when she was very young. She has become one of the most well-known archaeologists in the world because of the enthusiasm she has always had for the field and the commitment she has always shown to her job. The Dominican woman first started looking for Cleopatra's tomb in 2004, when she saw a statue of the queen at the temple of Taposiris Magna, which is located around 45 kilometers west of Alexandria. It is generally accepted that construction of the temple took place during the time of King Ptolemy II, who was Cleopatra's ancestor. Since then, the team under the direction of Dr. Martinez has been excavating the site in an effort to learn more details about the location of Cleopatra's tomb. Her first thought was that since Cleopatra was thought of as the embodiment of Isis, when she was looking for a location to be buried in her last days, she would have selected a temple that was devoted to the goddess as her final resting place. This was her working theory. Martinez drew a map of possible burial places in ancient Egypt, based on the descriptions provided by Strabo. His map included 21 locations that were said to be related with the myth of Isis and Osiris. After eliminating many potential temples, she found one on the outskirts of Alexandria. That was the only one to fulfill all of her requirements to be the one that housed the tomb. It was the Temple of Taposiris Magna, also known as the Great House of Osiris. This contradicted the findings of another theory, which had been created by the French explorer Frank Gaudio and the European Institute of Underwater Archaeology. According to this theory, the tomb was located in a palace in Alexandria that had been submerged in water as a result of an earthquake. Excavations on the palace began again in 1992. After more than a decade of investigation, Martinez became persuaded that Taposiris Magna, which is situated on the outskirts of Alexandria and is devoted to Osiris, the god of the dead, was a leading possibility for the Queen's burial location. Martinez made his first trip to Egypt to seek for Cleopatra's tomb almost 20 years ago. Martinez was able to get a meeting in Cairo with archaeologist Zahi Hawass, who was serving at the time as Egypt's Minister of Egypt's Antiquities Affairs. This was after sending hundreds of emails that were ignored. She was successful in persuading him to grant her 2 months of permission to excavate the site. Since 2004, researchers have been hard at work, but this latest discovery provides the most convincing proof to far that Martinez is heading in the right direction. Martinez said in an interview with the site Heritage Key that this is the perfect place for the tomb of Cleopatra. Even if there is just a 1% possibility that the last queen of Egypt is buried there, it is my responsibility to look for her. If we are successful in our search for the tomb, it will be the most significant find of the 21st century. Even if we do not find the tomb, we have made important findings in this area, both within the temple and outside the temple. To this day, the excavations have uncovered mummies with golden tongues and a cemetery featuring Greco-Roman-style mummies buried facing the temple. These findings lend credence to Martinez's hypothesis that the location was formerly home to a royal tomb. In addition, they found a bust that was thought to be of Cleopatra, as well as 22 coins that had her likeness. In addition to the tunnel, this most recent discovery consists of 2 alabaster sculptures from the Ptolemaic period, one of which looks to be a sphinx, as well as pottery containers and pots. A section of the tunnel is submerged in water, which may be the result of earthquakes that occurred in the area between the years 320 and 1303 CE. There is a possibility that the Taposiris Magna was destroyed as a result of these natural calamities.
There are stories that have been passed down through the years that continue to fascinate people's imaginations and are woven into the great fabric of history. A long-lost tomb has risen from the shadows, exposing secrets that have been dormant for generations. The tomb was hidden behind layers of sand and time since it was first discovered. A group of archaeologists have discovered the last resting place of none other than the fabled Queen Cleopatra. This discovery was made in the heart of Egypt, where the desert breezes whisper stories of pharaohs and ancient civilizations. The timing was perfect in every way imaginable. Egyptologists are pleased to report on a promising new archaeological find that seems to have been uncovered in Egypt. This finding comes in the same year that the tomb of Tutankhamun was discovered, which took place 100 years ago. Archaeologists have discovered a tunnel concealed under the Taposiris Magna Temple, which is located to the west of the ancient city of Alexandria. They hypothesize that this tunnel might lead to Queen Cleopatra's grave. It is unclear if there is proof for this, but if true, this would be a significant revelation that might completely change our understanding of Egypt's most well-known queen. Both Cleopatra and the Roman commander Mark Antony were buried in Cleopatra's tomb, according to Plutarch, the ancient Greek author who authored a biography of Cleopatra's husband and is credited with the longest and most comprehensive account of the last days of Cleopatra's reign. Plutarch states that Antony died on his sword, died in Cleopatra's arms, and was buried in the tomb the day Augustus and his Roman army entered Egypt and seized Alexandria. After visiting the tomb 2 weeks later to make sacrifices and pour libations, Cleopatra ended her life in an as yet unknown manner, A common misunderstanding is that she was bitten by an asp. Then she was buried in the mausoleum as well. The two young men may have been buried there as well. In the days that followed, Roman soldiers killed Ptolemy XV Caesar, commonly known as Caesarion or Little Caesar, and Marcus Antonius Antyllus, the son of Antony. It would be an almost unheard of archaeological find if the tomb of Cleopatra, which along with the majority of the Hellenistic city of Alexandria, has not already disappeared into the waters of the Mediterranean, is eventually discovered. In 2022, researchers in the ancient ruined city of Taposiris Magna on the Egyptian shore found a huge, beautiful tunnel under a temple. The tunnel was dubbed a geometric miracle by specialists. 13 meters below the surface, Kathleen Martinez of the University of Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic and associates discovered the building while continuing excavations and research of the temple. A staggering 1,305 meters of sandstone had been hewn through to create the 2-meter-tall tunnel. According to a statement released by the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities in November 2022, its design has a striking resemblance to the 1,036-meter tunnel of Eupalinos, an aqueduct dating back to the 6th century BCE located on the Greek island of Samos. The conduit, which is sometimes called an engineering masterpiece, was unheard of in its day in terms of both design and construction. The Taposiris Magna tunnel's engineering is outstanding even if it isn't without equals. Apart from its similarities to the Eupalinos tunnel, the Taposiris Magna tunnel has portions submerged in water. Nonetheless, its present role remains unclear. Martinez thinks the tunnel may be a good lead. Martinez has been working at Taposiris Magna since 2004 in pursuit of the location of Cleopatra's 7 hidden tomb. In the past, hints found during the excavations seemed to lead to the renowned queen and the last Ptolemy. Around 280 BCE, Ptolemy II, the son of a famous commander of Alexander the Great and one of Cleopatra's ancestors, she herself reigned from 51 BCE until her suicide in 30 BCE, established Taposiris Magna. The group surmises that the temple was erected in honor of the god Osiris and his consort, the goddess Isis, who Cleopatra harbored deep devotion to. There have been discovered coins with the names and likenesses of Alexander the Great and Cleopatra, as well as Isis figures. Greek and Roman graves have also been discovered in the temple's burial shafts. If Cleopatra and her husband Mark Antony can be located at all, it's probable that they were buried in comparable tombs. Further investigation may provide additional details, but researchers were unsure whether the tunnel may lead to these long-lost graves. Investigating the neighboring Mediterranean Sea will be the next step. A portion of the temple collapsed and was engulfed by the waves between 320 and 1303 CE as a result of many earthquakes that struck the shore. Plus, earlier investigations had uncovered a system of tunnels that connected Lake Mariot to the Mediterranean. A comprehensive investigation of these remains may provide further information about the enigmatic old city, whether or not the tombs are discovered. Some riches have already been found in the tunnel, including a rectangular block of limestone and bits of earthenware. 13 years ago, Zahi Hawass, the then Minister of Antiquities, declared, "The most significant discovery of the 21st century will be the finding of Cleopatra and Mark Antony's tomb." Here, both within and outside the temple, we discovered important findings even if we were not successful in finding Cleopatra and Mark Antony's tomb. The mausoleum of Augustus Antony and Cleopatra's deadly opponent in Rome is one example of a great historical monarch whose tomb is still intact, although whose contents have often been robbed and destroyed centuries ago. The tomb of Alexander the Great's father, Philip II of Macedon, which was discovered in Vergina in the late 1970s, is one famous exception. Because the tomb was discovered undamaged, decades of scientific study into its contents have advanced our understanding of the Macedonian royal family and their court. In the event that Cleopatra's tomb was proven to be undamaged, the same would apply. Its contents would provide a wealth of fresh knowledge for Egyptologists, classicists, ancient historians, and archaeologists. The majority of what we know about Cleopatra and her reign is from posthumous Greek and Roman writings, which were intrinsically critical of the Egyptian queen. The Egyptian viewpoint on Cleopatra is not well represented by the material we do have, but what we do have, honorific reliefs on the temples she constructed, votives committed by her subjects, gives us a completely different picture of her. No other Ptolemaic ruler's tomb has been discovered yet. According to reports, they were all located in Alexandria's palace district and, along with the rest of the city, are thought to have submerged beneath the water. Historians might spend decades studying the tomb's architecture and artifacts alone, which provide a wealth of hitherto undiscovered details about the Ptolemaic royal worship and the blending of Egyptian and Macedonian cultures. However, if Cleopatra's bones were also found, they would provide much more information about her, such as the reason for her death, what kind of person she was, and even the solution to the difficult subject of her race. So should our goals be to locate and examine Cleopatra's remains? Mismanagement and maltreatment of ancient Egyptian mummies have a lengthy history, extending from Tutankhamun to common Egyptians whose corpses have been unearthed throughout the years. Though happily gone are the days when Victorian dinner parties saw mummies being unwrapped as a kind of entertainment, heritage professionals are becoming more and more concerned about how our predecessors should be treated. For Egyptologists and other researchers, the finding of Cleopatra's tomb would be very valuable, but is it justifiable to deprive the queen the tranquility and seclusion in death that she was denied during her lifetime?
Cleopatra, the legendary queen of ancient Egypt, has remained a mystery for thousands of years, as has her last burial place. But 1,600 years after her death, May scholars have discovered a clue that would lead not only to her grave, but also to Mark Antony's. Archaeologists may have done precisely that almost 20 years after study started. Join us as we discover more about the evidence that are pointing archaeologists towards the direction of Cleopatra's ultimate resting place. What do we know about Cleopatra's last days? Plutarch, an ancient Greek writer, was among the first to record Cleopatra's death and burial with her husband, Roman commander Mark Antony. Antony died on the day Augustus and his Roman armies entered Egypt and conquered Alexandria, according to his history. Cleopatra stood by his side as he drew his last breath before burying him in her tomb. After 2 weeks, Cleopatra went to the tomb to make sacrifices and pour libations with her own hands, and she too died. We don't know how it occurred, but according to common myth, she was bitten by an asp. When she died, her corpse was interred in the mausoleum adjacent to her husband's. Unfortunately, the family faced further tragedy in the days that followed. The Roman armies executed Antony's son, Marcus Antonius Antilles, and Cleopatra's son, Ptolemy XV Caesar. It's likely that their remains were interred with their parents in the mausoleum, but we don't know for sure. Could researchers have found Cleopatra's mausoleum? Could researchers have made a breakthrough in their decade-long quest for the Egyptian queen? It's conceivable. People are calling the finding of 2 mummies dating back to Cleopatra's period at Taposiris Magna a sensation. Despite the fact that the tomb had been shut for 2,000 years, the mummies were wrapped with gold leaf, which could only be afforded by the wealthy and powerful. This has led some academics to conclude that these people may have even known Cleopatra herself. The mummies are in extremely bad form due to water damage, but they were nonetheless amazing back in the day. They were recognized as a guy and a woman after being x-rayed. What's truly intriguing is that no one has been able to discover the tomb of any Ptolemaic pharaoh, including Cleopatra, despite decades of searching. So this finding is significant. Dr. Kathleen Martinez has been organizing excavations at Taposiris Magna for over 14 years, and nothing has stopped her from her mission, since she is certain Cleopatra's tomb will be discovered there. However, just a tiny portion of the huge site has been examined so far. Researchers discovered a burial chamber holding 2 mummies after discovering the place was tied to the Queen of Egypt. They cautiously lifted a limestone slab with a chisel and hammer and obtained a sight of the mummies through a little hole. Why is this finding so crucial in history? For years, researchers have been obsessed with Cleopatra's lost tomb, and for some reason, no one has given up hope of discovering her. It's incredible to believe that the quest for her tomb started over 20 years ago, and archaeologists from the University of Santo Domingo have poured their hearts and souls into locating it, and it seems that their perseverance has finally paid off. The Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities has revealed the discovery of a 1305-meter tunnel 13 meters below ground level, which architectural experts view as an engineering wonder. The excavation revealed the site of a massive religious complex comprising 3 shrines and a holy lake. Over 1,500 artifacts have also been discovered, including busts, golden pieces, sculptures, and a vast collection of coins representing Alexander the Great, Queen Cleopatra, and the Ptolemies. The most significant finding was an elaborate network of tunnels leading to the Mediterranean Sea and submerged constructions. This expedition started in 2005, but scholars have stayed committed to finding out where the queen is buried. But don't mistake this yearning for obsession. The reason they're so desperate to discover her is straightforward. Cleopatra was an amazing historical figure who fell prey to Roman propaganda aimed at distorting her image. She was well educated and likely one of the first women to study properly at the Alexandria Museum. This was unusual at the time, but she made certain she was present in the cultural center of her period. But it's her last moments before death, when she lets an asp attack her after Mark Antony dies in her arms, that make her a sad figure. How is the digging doing overall? The search for Cleopatra's tomb was initiated by Zahi Hawass and his fellow archaeologists within the Taposiris Magna Temple. They began by excavating both inside and outside of the temple, where they discovered a variety of architectural components dispersed over many levels. On the ground level, things were looking up. The team was able to find the foundations of the limestone chamber, which were placed parallel to the north wall. Things were looking well. In each of the rooms, the flooring was also made of limestone and had an enclosed appearance. They also discovered a jug made of clay that had been used for blessings and contained oil that had been donated by the church. There were a great number of these kinds of containers found, and quite a few of them had seals with Greek inscriptions on them. They also found a statue of a king or queen without its head, hidden behind one of the walls of the structure. The team eventually reached the second floor as the search continued to advance. They identified architectural elements dating back to the late Roman era at that location. Is it possible that this structure was built during the reign of Cleopatra? This level had a structure in the shape of a rectangle, and inside that structure were 3 rooms of varied sizes. Access to this level was provided via a staircase. A fresh entrance was discovered at the easternmost point of the building, which led to a hallway that was flanked on each side by 2 small chambers. The chambers were separated by a tunnel that resulted in a door entry to another vast space. Nevertheless, we are unsure as to what the chamber's intended use was. It is believed that the person in charge of the Roman camp resided in this room when it was initially constructed. The 3rd level, which was located to the west of the Roman villa, was then found by the archaeologists. When the team found 5 steps made of limestone leading to a courthouse, they made another discovery of limestone. This time, the stairs led to a courthouse. On the 4th level are the ruins of buildings that were most likely inhabited at some point by Ptolemaic temple priests. These dwellings are thought to have been used by the priests. This area also featured a group of furnaces, one of which had a stellar that had 10 lines of Greek inscription uncovered in front of it. This location also contained a complex of furnaces. During the course of the excavations, a number of architectural components were uncovered both within and outside of the temple. In addition to this, it uncovered tunnels that led to other discoveries, such as bones and antiques dating back to the Ptolemaic and Roman times. It is also important to note that the foundation of the temple looked like a rectangular construction, and it is possible that this structure served as a chapel for the deities associated with the temple. They followed a path that went from an altar at the building's westernmost point to the sanctuary, where they found the Isis chapel. In addition to it, they found the arm of a statue of Apis. This suggested that the temple was dedicated to Osiris, Isis, and Horus, the holy trinity of Egyptian mythology. This temple was lavishly decorated with adornments, which showed that it was completely committed to the gods that Cleopatra liked so much.